A hate crime typically involves violence that is motivated by prejudice on the basis of race, religion, sexual orientation, or other grounds. The perpetrator oftentimes targets a victim because of his or her membership in a certain social group. In Belize, there are cases where members of the LGBTI community are targeted, as well as other vulnerable populations, including older persons and people living with disabilities. But there's no anti-discrimination legislation in place to address these issues that are happening daily.
It's a matter that has been dealt with, not necessarily only as an individual right, as much as a collective right. So we're not looking at creating new crimes. It's like most of the violations that we're looking at already exist in the books. So assault or other crimes. So we're just looking at enabling the legislation to give space for those who are suffering from hate crimes to report.
Today, various stakeholders and members of vulnerable groups converged at the Biltmore Plaza for a hate crime forum organized by the Office of the Special Envoy for Women and Children and the National AIDS Commission. The discussion brought together experts from human rights activists to the judiciary and drafters to begin the process of establishing that key piece of legislation.
Just recently, a cabinet approved the cabinet paper that my office, along with the National AIDS Commission, submitted for the anti-discrimination, the drafting of the anti-discrimination legislation. And so in line with consultation and the sensitization of the public, this is one of the objectives, to get experts on hate crimes and activists to speak to us, to enlighten us, to educate us, and to get it for us to get a chance, for the attendants to get a chance to ask their questions, to make comments, and that's how we want to proceed with this. With moving forward with this piece of legislation.
What we are looking at is to see what is that can be done in Belize and adapt the legislation and the models and the lessons learned throughout different countries, primarily in the Commonwealth, to see what is good for Belize and what is that Belizeans see as needed in their society. So it would be like a combination of our skills, our knowledge, and the needs and of the society in Belize. What we are doing as well is we're developing tools and research tools on the matter of hate crime legislation throughout the Commonwealth.
While this is the initial phase of the process, a subsequent component will also include training of law enforcement officers so that they can identify cases of hate crimes.
The lack of indication in the laws doesn't help them, doesn't help law enforcement officers as much as doesn't help other civil servants to see whether their behavior is criminal or not. So I think it's a bit of both. The laws don't necessarily change mentality, but they help positioning the state in what it is that the state has already committed to in terms of its international obligations, but also in terms of its responsibility to protect all its citizens.
Duane, Moody for News 5.